Hey everyone, this is Daryl Evans of the 1984 World Champion Detroit Tigers. My favorite show to be on is The Sports Circus with Big Sal.
Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Today's show is brought to you by UppercutChops.com. Check out their tasty selection of all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime, Angus, and Wagyu steaks and chops. Wait till you taste their best-in-class New York steaks, the filet mignon, and of course the king of all, those massive and gigantic cowboy cut and tomahawk cut ribeyes. Best I've ever had, probably be the best you ever have as well. Check them out at UppercutChops.com. That's UppercutChops.com. Or give them a call, find out what's for dinner. 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100 for UppercutChops.com. Yes! All right, and a big welcome in everybody listening in on all of our network affiliates and independents from coast to coast. Everybody watching on all of our cable providers from coast to coast in select markets, as well as hotel TV where applicable. And everybody streaming on Pick Your Favorite Streaming, as well as on Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. Check that out. Chicago Food Favorites, a fun group about food, restaurants, recipes, whatnot. Make some friends, have some fun. Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. All right. Now, I find this rather interesting, and I think a lot of other people would too. And we think back to the National Football League and some of the great matchups, historically, some of the great talent. And we think of the original logos, and we think of the teams as they have evolved over the decades and whatnot. Well, since the beginning of the NFL, many, many, many years ago, about 100 years ago or so, we think back to the old teams and those historic logos. And we say, you know, some of those we really like. Me being from Chicago, obviously I don't have a lot of love for the Green Bay Packers. But then again, they are one of those longtime originals, and they go all the way back to the day. And I do have some friends that played for the Packers organization. So, of course, I always like to poke them a little bit. But I always think of the other teams that were around way back before even the AFL and whatnot. And one of the teams that I always think of, and I've always liked the logo, was the old Washington Redskins. Yes, now the old Washington Redskins, a very, very cool hat, one of the coolest hats in the league. And I wonder what would ever happen if they went back to being the Redskins from the Washington Football Club or team or whatever the hell they call them to the Washington, Commanders. But what if they returned back to be the Washington Redskins? Now, I think that would be really cool. I think there's a lot of people that would be behind this one. And I really believe that, well, frankly, there's a lot of people that really want that. And as I've been told by some people in Native American circles, that they had no issue with the Redskins being the actual name of the football team. And as a matter of fact, many of them supported it. Pick your favorite tribe. I don't know of a particular tribe that was against the Redskins name, honestly. And I ask myself, would it be so bad? No. I mean, me personally, I like them, even though, of course, they were a rival team for my Chicago Bears and for the other teams anyway. But I say, well, look, when the Redskins disappeared, I think a part of the NFL disappeared. And for me personally, I've got, for everybody watching on TV, I've got a Redskins mini helmet right next to me here. It's just one of those ones you really like, whether you like the team or not. It's just one of the cool hats. So fast forward, and we say, who else would like it? I'll tell you who would like it. How about Scott Turner from the Housing and Urban Development Secretary? He would like it. How about some of the former Super Bowl champions from the Washington Redskins era? And how about President Donald Trump? That's right. Nice round of applause. Yes! Because there's a lot of people that like it, and let's face it, as the Redskins were one of those super popular teams, and the Commanders, it's hard to get behind the name because, well, it's just hard to get past the idea of what the Redskins name represented, and the greats, and the Super Bowls, and everything that was Redskins. Even one of our friends, we would love for the Redskins to resurface for the great Brian Mitchell. Brian is a friend of the sports circus, and one of those Redskins greats. And I haven't talked to Brian about this, but I'm confident that Brian would probably like to see the return of the Redskins, but he doesn't necessarily. I think a lot of the players probably don't want to say it only because there's politics involved with it. And I don't know. I mean, maybe we'll bring Brian back on and we'll talk about it. Who knows? But in any event, look, a lot of people want it. And honestly, there's a little bit of pressure being put on this to bring the Redskins back. President Donald Trump received support from the Department of Housing and Urban Development Secretary Scott Turner amid the push for the Washington Commanders to ditch his current nickname in favor of the Redskins. Now, Turner was an NFL defensive back for 8 years. He played for the Redskins, the San Diego Superchargers, and the Denver Broncos from 1995 to 2003 before calling it a career. So here's a guy that's been in the rodeo. He wore that Indian head hat, and I got to tell you, it's one of the cool ones. Anyway, he wrote in a message, and this was on social media, quote, "I played in the NFL and was drafted by the Washington Redskins, not the Washington football team or the Commanders," that he wrote on social media, "and the President of the United States is right. It's time to bring back the Redskins name." Now, that was his post on social media. And then, of course, President Donald Trump had posted something similar. He says in his post, the Washington whatevers should immediately change their name back to the Washington Redskins football team. There is a big clamoring for this. Likewise, the Cleveland Indians, one of the 6 original baseball teams with a storied past. And our great Indian people in massive numbers want this to happen. Their heritage and prestige is systematically being taken away from them. Times are different now than they were 3 or 4 years ago. And we are a country of passion and common sense. Owners get it done. Close quote. Now, that was a quote. That quote was by Donald J. Trump, our president. That's right, our president. For all you people on the blue team that don't like it, guess what? Get over it! It doesn't matter. Your opinion, you had a chance to place a vote, and guess what? Your team lost. It is what it is. But the reality is we have an administration that is doing what the people want, doing what they promised to do, whether it's build a wall or do this or add tariffs or whatnot. Hey, listen, how about putting America first for a change? And I never understood, and it doesn't matter what side of the political fence you're on, what I don't understand is how anybody that is from here, that lives here, or has naturalized to these United States of America, how do you not want a great country? And what's interesting is that people say, well, this Make America Great Again movement is a bad thing. What is so bad about making your country great? Again, Democrat, Republican, Independent, whatever. I would imagine there's a certain degree of national pride. When soldiers go out and fight for their country, I don't really think it matters what side of the political fence in which they lie. What matters is they want what's great, and they want a great America. So should it really matter what side of the political fence you're on, or what this one says and what that one says? I mean, look, the Redskins selected this guy Turner from the Housing and Urban Development back in the 7th round of 1995. He played 3 seasons in Washington, 106 tackles, so forth. But Donald Trump put a blitz on the Commanders and the Cleveland Indians, and he did that on social media. Look, I really think it's a good situation, only because not me being selfish. I believe it is what the people generally want. And I don't represent the people. I'm a part of the people. And in fact, there's a statement that he put out there, says, my statement, quote, my statement on the Washington Redskins has totally blown up, but only in a very positive way. I may put a restriction on them if they don't change their name back to the original Washington Redskins and get rid of their ridiculous moniker, the Commanders. I won't make a deal for them to build a stadium in Washington. The team would be much more valuable, obviously, much more valuable if what? Well, they'd make more money if a deal was made, and it'd be a little bit more exciting for people. I think more people would get around it, or they would actually get behind it. So Daniel Snyder changed Washington's team name from the Redskins to the Washington football team before the start of the 2020 season amid a summer of racial tension and all this other crap. And the team eventually became the Washington Commanders, and Snyder sold the team to Josh Harris. And of course, Fox News reached out to the Commanders for a comment. And of course, Harris made it clear that he has no intention of changing the nickname again. And Harris said on Fox News' special report a few months back that the team would not bring back the Redskins name, even with a plan to build a new stadium in Washington, D.C. So I'll tell you what, folks, think on that one over the break here. We'll be back in just a few minutes on the Sports Circus. And look, I'm going to think about it too, like everybody else. And hopefully we'll have a meeting of the minds. And how about a bilateral agreement that everybody digs? Back here in a few minutes on the Circus. Don't go anywhere. I'm your ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it on here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. B-E-E-P-I-N autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
If you'd like to borrow up to $100,000 and get pre-approved in minutes, call the number we'll give you at the end of this commercial. Our lending partners have already loaned millions of dollars to individuals just like you, and we're ready to lend you up to $100,000 if you qualify. Even if your credit is not perfect, you could use the money to pay off high-interest credit cards, for home renovations, or consolidate existing debt. You can get flexible, easy-to-pay terms. The consultation to find out if you qualify is free. To find out if you qualify for our special financing program, call this toll-free number 24 hours a day. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. That's 800-335-1376. Important terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Loan amount, annual percentage rate, and term will vary depending on creditworthiness. Applying does not guarantee approval. Account approval is subject to verification and confirmation of your credit history and acceptance by a lender. If you choose to apply for a loan through us, a consumer report will be obtained to evaluate your creditworthiness in connection with your application for credit.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UpperCutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UpperCutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UpperCutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door, without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average and best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at UpperCutChops.com or call 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Or make your selection directly at UpperCutChops.com.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Roy Firestone. Now it's time to throw it back to Sal.
Thank you, Roy, and welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. This segment brought to you in part by our friends at the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Check them out at csncoyotes.com for upcoming games and events. That's the College of Southern Nevada Athletics, csncoyotes.com for upcoming games and events. Check them out, folks. All right, wanting that applause to play out for our long-standing partner at the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Boy, you know, they've been with us since the very beginning, and we certainly always want to give them the super applause, and we also want to acknowledge everything that they've done for us and everything we do for them as well. Look, it is a great partnership, and in my opinion, it's the best school as far as post-secondary or anything beyond high school in Southern Nevada. But you can call it Nevada, too. All right, and welcome back to everybody listening in on all of our affiliates, including our friends over in Atlanta, WDJY 99.1 FM. Thanks for waking up with us. Over in Auburn, Alabama, thanks for driving home with us on 1230 AM WAUD. That's home of the Atlanta Braves. Welcoming everybody up and down the Midwest, out through the Rocky Mountains, across to sunny Southern California and fabulous Las Vegas, driving up and down Interstate 15, listening in on 101.5 FM and 107.3 FM, Highway Country Radio. That's home of the Raiders and home of the Vegas Golden Knights. Also welcoming everybody up and down the West Coast, up to Anchorage, down to Honolulu, CBS Sports 1500, KHKA, home of the Yankees, 49ers, and Alabama Crimson Tide, as well as everybody on all of our cable affiliates, Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Oceanic, Time Warner, Spectrum, WOW, Charter, and independent cable affiliates, plus Hotel TV. Of course, those are in select markets, plus Hotel TV where applicable, and of course on all streaming platforms as well, plus the Mars Rover. All right, continuing on with this Trump and Commanders and Guardians push. I kind of like this. I like it because it takes a lot of, well, we'll keep this a family show. It just takes a lot of personal parts, a lot of backbone. Let's just say it that way. It takes a lot of backbone to make these statements and get it out there. And whether you like this guy or not, it doesn't really matter. What really matters is that somebody with some influence is actually speaking up. And I happen to believe that it represents a lot of the people out there. Again, despite whatever side of the political fence you're on, I would imagine that all sides, whether it's Democrat, Republican, or independent, I think that people generally speaking, sports fans generally speaking, they want to see the Redskins name back, and they want to see the Indians back. And people say, well, wait a minute. What about some of these other teams? Well, the Chicago Blackhawks, if you go back to the formation of the Blackhawks and what it represents, well, I mean, look, you're not going to find that the Blackhawks are ever going to change their name. If there's a big story behind it, that Indian head will always stay in Chicago for, in fact, that is the number one logo in all of sports, the number one sold logo. No, it's not the New York Yankees, which it's really easy to surmise it could be, but no, it's the Indian head from the Chicago Blackhawks. But I have to say that the Indians had, in my opinion, I'm a White Sox guy, but I got to tell you, that Indian, Chief Wahoo, was clearly the champion of mascots and logos in Major League Baseball. And I think there's many people would agree that Chief Wahoo was the best of the best. So, I mean, look, I would love to see him back. And there's just something about the Cleveland Indians rather than the Cleveland Guardians. Your team is made up of, or it's named after some statues. I mean, come on. What's that all about? Anyway, so the president implored the owners of the NFL's Washington Commanders and Cleveland Guardians to revert to their organization's old nicknames in a social media post, as I mentioned previously. And I like that. And think back in, July of 2021, when team owner Paul Dolan announced the Cleveland Indians would become the Cleveland Guardians. And Cleveland has been known as the Indians since 19 1915. So for over 100 years, they were known as the Indians. That's right. And even before that, if I'm not mistaken, they were the Cleveland Spiders, another really cool name. Anyway, the point is, 106 years as the Cleveland Indians was flushed right down the toilet. And Dolan previously said the decision was to explore the name change, and it came from, quote, an awakening or epiphany, close quote, after the death of George Floyd. Shut up. No. In my opinion, it was political pressure. It was liberal political pressure. I mean, look, regardless, the push to keep Native American team names has been strong, particularly with the Commanders organization, and the president already expressed his belief, as we mentioned, that the Commanders made a big mistake when they changed the name from the Redskins. And I love when he said on social media, the Washington whatevers should immediately change their name back to the Redskins. I mean, that's good stuff. I have to tell you, that's really good stuff. But anyway, he says, of course, quote, our great Indian people in massive numbers want this to happen, close quote. And then again, he goes, quote, their heritage and prestige is systematically being taken away from them. Times are different now, blah, 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 or close quote. The point is, people want it. And are we going to beat this to death? Maybe, maybe not. Harris said on Fox News Channel on Special Report, as I mentioned, that it would not bring the name back for the Washington Redskins just to build a stadium. So the bigger question is, what's going to happen with the stadium? How does that work? And what if they don't receive the funding? They're going to have to go for private money, which isn't the worst thing in the world because they certainly have the ability, and through their support and so forth and through their sponsors. The problem is, folks, the reason we're going over this because when we think of sponsor money, what does sponsor money want? They want sponsor everything. So you think of what happened in Washington because of, I think it was Federal Express, right? So FedEx, I think, had a big part with this name change thing in the first place. Why? Because I believe, and I can't verify it, it's not my job to, but I believe that there was a lot of pressure put on the Redskins ownership to change the name. So if they raise private money and say, all right, we're going to build a stadium this way, now what happens to the team? What happens to the message? What happens to the signage? What happens to everything? Yes, it's going to be this name, field, whatever. There's going to be their signage all over the place, whatever. And you always have to say it and so forth and so on. But the bigger question is, what happens to the ticket prices? Because they're going to have to recoup. Now it's going to be about TV deals, TV contracts. The salaries are already out of control. So if they can't raise the bond money to, I guess, build this stadium, they're going to have to go private. Now, we saw that in Las Vegas for the Raiders stadium. And unfortunately, one of the deals, I think it was a terrible deal, that the local university, they ended up getting, I guess, a couple of $100 million out of the deal, which it sure seems like the local university hasn't done a damn thing to fix their academics. Because in my opinion, it's one of the worst universities in America. And it certainly is in Clark County, right here in Las Vegas, is one of the worst school districts as far as your K through 12 rankings. I mean, it's really bad. And so you have to ask yourself, if they raised private money that way, they didn't put money back into the school system, yet they put it into a stadium, and then the university gets a whole bunch of money, they get to use the stadium, but meanwhile, back at the ranch, the university seems to still be flailing about. And you say, well, how could you say that? I'll tell you how I could say that. Years ago, the University of Nevada, Las Vegas was the #1 school for hospitality, hotel and hospitality management and so forth. With all the big hotels and casinos here, you'd think that they'd be the best in the business. And they were for a long time until they were taken over by a school in the middle of America, at the edge of the earth. And that's right. Purdue University has taken over as the #1 school for hotel and hospitality. And of course I applaud that because I'm a Purdue grad, but I'm saddened for the local school and for the students, for everything, all those people that tried to go to the best program in the country. Well, it just seems like the spending and the budgets and the way money is doled out in this city is asked backwards. Well, guess what? Now what do we have? We have Washington, D.C., folks. And if you think that there's a problem right here in Las Vegas with the way that they handled their things, well, guess what? If Vegas is, I guess, one of the teams in a league, then the best team in the league or the biggest team in the league or the most popular team in the league, they always say, well, the Dallas Cowboys are America's team. Yeah, whatever. The reality is, from a city standpoint, when it comes to corruption, the most corrupt city as I know it, the most corrupt metropolitan area in these United States of America has to be Washington, D.C. So guess what, folks? Now you have a conundrum. And do you have a Washington, D.C. football team that is going to hang on to their name? They're going to be forced to change their name. They're going to try to get a stadium. They're going to try to get some federal funding. They're going to try to get some bonds. They're going to try to get anything. Oh, by the way, now you've got pressure from the people, but you've got pressure from the government. You've got pressure from your team, from all those people that play on the team with those big salaries. You got pressure from the season ticket holders. Which way do you bend? That's the big question. I'm not going to say which way, whatever. All I'm going to tell you is, folks, this is a legitimate concern. And if you think that the Washington Commanders name is going to stand in the long run, good for you. If you think the Redskins are going to return, good for you. If you think the team's just going to move, then good for you as well. I'm not going to tell you what to think, but I got to tell you, there's a lot of pressure here, and we'll see what ownership does. Back here in a few minutes. Don't go anywhere. I'm your ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime, nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it out here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
Hello, Americans. It's Uncle Sam here. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes to the IRS or state, don't worry. I've got important news that may help you negotiate a lower tax bill. In today's economy, the IRS has released a variety of new rules and is offering more flexible terms to help Americans looking to settle their IRS debt. If you apply today, we may be able to lift your wage garnishments and release a freeze on your bank assets or business. Our team of tax professionals can resolve your case and stop collection actions against you. Even if you've been audited or haven't filed a return in years, they can help. Call right now and find out if you qualify to settle your IRS debt for far less than what you owe. Pick up your phone right now and call us for a free $500 IRS tax review. Don't wait. Here's the number.
Call right now. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. For the last time. That's 800-950-2049.
Do a search on how to get out of credit card debt, and you'll find everything from crazy promises to ways you can try to do it yourself. Many of those ideas just don't work, and they leave you broker than you were. Here's some advice. Call our debt helpline. In a quick and free 5-minute conversation, our experts will listen to you and learn about how much credit card debt you have, what your goals are, and then show you the right solution to help you get out of credit card debt with one new simple, affordable payment. The credit card companies make available special programs to help if you're struggling. All it takes for you to finally get out of credit card debt is one quick, free phone call. So please call right now.
800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. That's 800-948-6817. Paid for by the Debt Helpline.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
Hey everyone, Dave Jackson here, ESPN rules analyst on ESPN Hockey, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP studio, AAMP Television. Folks, make sure you check out thesportscircus.com for our upcoming guests, prior guests, recorded shows, which can be found on all streaming platforms, as well as, well, right here at thesportscircus.com itself. All right. Also, by the way, folks, we partnered up with Vacation Buddies, and Vacation Buddies wants to give you a couple of nights in Las Vegas or in Orlando, Florida, even Branson, Missouri. If you can name which of these four superstars has won 6 NBA titles. Is it A, Magic Johnson, B, Shaquille O'Neal, C, Kobe Bryant, or D, Michael Jordan? If you know the answer, call 888-576-5777, 888-576-5777, 888-576-5777. Now, Vacation Buddies is not affiliated with this station, but they want to give you a couple of nights in Vegas or in Orlando, Florida, or even Branson, Missouri. If you know the answer to that simple trivia question, which NBA superstar won 6 NBA titles out of these four? A, Magic Johnson, B, Shaquille O'Neal, C, Kobe Bryant, D, Michael Jordan. 888-576-5777. Call them now. Yes! All right, welcome back to everybody. You know who you are, even you on the Mars rover, if you happen to be listening in. Now, what I find also interesting outside of all that discussion about this organization needs to get a whole bunch of money to build a stadium and whatnot. Now, I understand that the University of Southern California is trying to build a big athletic center. I think it's about a $350 million project, and they're wondering, where are we going to get the money? And there's been all kinds of press on it. Some of it good, some of it bad, a lot of it really bad. And so you say, well, wait a minute. Isn't USC a very, very heavily backed university? We're going to get to that in a minute. Now, this was from the LA Times. They said USC signals layoffs as deficit surpasses $200 million amid volatile external environment. That's right. This is by Daniel Miller. We don't want to edit the credit. We're going to give Daniel Miller, the staff writer. He is a social media staff writer. We'll give it to him. So, Daniel says, USC interim president Byung-Soo Kim says the university's budget deficit surpasses $200 million. An undisclosed number of layoffs and other belt tightening is ahead, he said. And the university cites, quote, significant shifts in federal support, close quote, for the difficult financial outlook. Now, citing a budget deficit in excess of $200 million, the University of Southern California interim president said the undisclosed number of layoffs and other belt-tightening measures would be implemented to deal decisively with our financial challenges, as put by him. And of course, Byung-Soo Kim wrote in a letter also addressed the faculty and staff that USC is, quote, experiencing significant shifts in federal support, close quote, for its research and other programs. And of course, they're trying to, the liberal media, this is what the LA Times is, just like the New York Times and this Times and that Times and this newspaper and that newspaper. I mean, look, the media is controlled by the liberal left. It is what it is, folks. I'm not picking a side. I'm telling you these are the facts. So they're all going to spin the story a particular way. So let's try to keep this as neutral as possible. So essentially what the media is saying, look, there are cuts due to the government saying, hey, look, we're going to lean out our budget. We're going to try to kill some spending. We're going to raise some money through tariffs from other countries, which there's really nothing wrong with that because, frankly, other countries are making us pay, 100, 200% tariffs, whatnot. And they're complaining because, we have to pay maybe 30%. Get over it, folks. So if you understand the tariffs argument, you'll understand how things are done. Certain people don't do it, they don't understand it, and all they do is they repeat what they hear on the nightly news. And so, just like in this article by the LA Times, they say recent cost cutting, including a hiring freeze announced, has been enough. And Kim said that by the end of the fiscal year that concluded recently, the university's deficit had mushroomed to more than $200 million, a notable increase from $158 million from a year previous. So they're blowing hundreds of millions of dollars in the first place. Think about that, folks. I'm going somewhere with this, I promise. And of course, they say also, in addition to layoffs, Kim said USC will also sell unused properties and adjust compensation for its highest earners, among other moves. Okay. So if that's the case, what about this ridiculous salary they pay to Lincoln Riley? Now, I'm just saying, from a football standpoint, they paid this guy, they paid, $100+ million contract for an average at best coach that hasn't produced anything for the football team. Why they continue to carry him, I have no idea. It doesn't matter to me. I'm not a part of that. I mean, friends of mine are very visible alums from USC. But here's what I'm getting after. They say all this negative, this, that, they say, well, recently, Stanford disclosed $140 million in general operating fund cuts and related layoffs for the upcoming academic year, citing, quote, significant uncertainty about how federal support for universities will evolve, close quote. Now, Stanford also is a private university, and they're saying the same thing at Boston University. Boston announced it would cut and give pink slips to about 120 staff members, cutting the budget by 5%. Okay, so there's 3 private universities with big bucks in their endowments in the first place. You say, well, wait a minute. What's really going on here? And they're saying, well, USC could lose federally sponsored research by $300 million annually. Why is that? And frankly, do they need it? This is where I'm going with it. And you wonder, well, don't they have any money in the first place? As I understand it, there is a Bloomfield Performance Center. Look, in interviews, 2 university employees acknowledged how grave the federal funding losses could be, but they also cited several pricey projects that they believe have hurt USC's finances. Those endeavors include the construction of the Bloom Football Performance Center, which broke ground not too terribly long ago, and the installation of the enhanced security measures in the aftermath of some protest and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so it was a political event, a staged event that caused extra money needed for extra security, blah, blah, blah. Okay, what this really is a $350 million performance center. It's a football performance center. That's what this is really about. It has nothing to do, in my opinion, with security measures and all this other crap. That comes from a prominent USC alum. And so really, this is really about Bloom. It's not really about anything else. But now the LA Times is saying, well, it's a federal thing and it's the current administration's problem and all this other crap. Okay, here's the reality, folks, what people don't tell you. We say, all right, you could look at this and cut it up however you want. I can go to USC's website and I can look at we-r.usc.edu. And there's all kinds of information about shifting federal funding and there's structural deficit and why further action is necessary. So they're putting their spin on it. Now, USC, once upon a time, was a very conservative institution. And of course, with all these ridiculous radical changes and all this equity and inclusion, whatever, these accommodations and whatnot, they have shifted their position to a highly liberal university. Of course, being right in the heart of South Central Los Angeles, well, this is what happens. Right? You want political votes. You want votes. You want this, that, and the other to go your way. We're going to give that to you. You got to vote for us. And then when you look at what the mayor is doing, who is a complete dumpster fire, in my opinion, you say, well, wait a minute. What has University of Southern California received from the city of Los Angeles? It's the old "what have you done for me lately" thing. Well, as I understand it, USC raises a bunch of money. They do a lot of things for the city. What does the city do for it? Not a whole hell of a lot. And so you can look at these forward-looking statements and whatever from USC, but folks, that's not what this is about. What this is about is the spending of the money. And they say, well, hey, look, we're running a negative deficit. If that's the case, if USC is running a deficit, this for all you people driving between LA and Las Vegas right now, or Southern California and Las Vegas, all you SC alums, even UCLA alums and whatnot, and all you other alums from all the local schools there or whatnot, or if you just have interest with family and friends on the West Coast, or if you're just interested in the story, because actually this is pretty interesting stuff. Wait till you hear the turn that I'm taking with this. Okay, so they're complaining that they're $200 million in the red. They're spending that much. But what they're not telling you, that's right, they're not telling you about the massive endowment that the University of Southern California has in the first place. They're not telling you what their budgetary scenario is from all the revenue that's earned versus the endowment, or in addition to the endowment. That's right. Or then you take the subtraction of their operating expenses, their short and long-term expenses and so forth, how it's been accrued and whatnot. This is the real story, folks. It's not, oh, well, hey, here's a big problem at the campus in South Central Los Angeles for the University of Southern California. No, they're not telling you what it really looks like and what it looks like across America. This is the problem, folks. And when we come back from break, we're going to take a deeper dive into this and tell you exactly what the numbers look like. Believe me, it's going to blow you away. You don't want to miss this one. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to come, folks.
Do you know someone with a drug or alcohol problem? Get help right now. Insurance may cover everything. Stop the drug and alcohol nightmare. Are drug and alcohol problems hitting you too close to home? Get help right now. Insurance may cover everything.
800-831-1560. 800-831-1560. 800-831-1560. That's 800-831-1560.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
If you served in the Marine Corps, by now you know about the contaminated water problem at Camp Lejeune. If you were stationed or worked at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1987, you probably have a lot of questions. We have some answers. You could be entitled to compensation. Billions of dollars are being allocated to pay for damages to anyone stationed at Camp Lejeune during that time. Unfortunately, it appears that officials may have known the contaminated water problem existed and did little to protect their men. The Semper Fi code was not honored. If you or someone in your family has developed a serious illness, including various forms of cancer, call this Camp Lejeune legal support line right now. You can't turn back the clock and change what happened, but you can certainly call right now and learn your rights as a Marine. Here's the number.
Call 800-335-7196. 800-335-7196. That's 800-335-7196.
Do a search on how to get out of credit card debt, and you'll find everything from crazy promises to ways you can try to do it yourself. Many of those ideas just don't work, and they leave you broker than you were. Here's some advice. Call our debt helpline. In a quick and free 5-minute conversation, our experts will listen to you and learn about how much credit card debt you have, what your goals are, and then show you the right solution to help you get out of credit card debt with one new simple, affordable payment. The credit card companies make available special programs to help if you're struggling. All it takes for you to finally get out of credit card debt is one quick, free phone call. So please call right now.
800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. That's 800-948-6817. Paid for by the Debt Helpline.
Hey everybody, this is Brian Urlacher. Welcome back to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Thanks for everybody joining us on all radio, TV, and streaming platforms: Apple, Amazon, Audible, Spotify, Pandora, iHeart, YouTube, Stitcher, Deezer, Facebook, Chicago Food Favorites. Thanks for joining us there. Check that out, folks. Again, Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. Join in, have some fun, talk about your favorite restaurants, favorite recipes, your favorite foods. Make some friends, have some fun on Chicago Food Favorites. All right, back with this discussion. And this discussion goes back to, well, look, I was talking about the deficit from the University of Southern California. They're complaining that they're $200 million in spending. Okay, and then I said, there is another vehicle here that a lot of people don't really know much about. How about this? How about university endowments? Now, do you know what these are, folks? Are you familiar? We've always heard about them, right? So an endowment, according to theconversation.com, they say endowments are pools of financial investments that belong to a nonprofit. These assets produce a revenue stream, typically from dividends, interest, and realized capital gains. Fund endowments usually originate and charitable donations made to support an institution's mission. So in most cases with higher education endowments, this wealth, which helps buoy a nonprofit's budget, is supposed to last forever. And contributions to endowments, of course, are tax deductible for donors who itemize on their tax returns. And once these funds are invested, they grow generally tax-free. Interesting. But beginning in 2018, the federal government imposed a 1.4% excise tax on dozens of higher education institutes with relatively large endowments. So be it. I mean, look, let's think about this. Now you've got essentially your own typical slush fund. For example, Harvard, $53.2 billion endowment. Big number. I mean, look, all told, money distributes from endowments covers more than 15% on average of college and universities' operating expenses. And that was about a year ago. Some of America's institutions of higher education, however, lean much more heavily than that on their endowment and pay their bills. Okay, so all of that said, without getting into all the details of how they influence higher education, from funding scholarships and other kind of aid for students and so forth, when I say that, for meeting certain agenda, if you know what I mean. And so we say, well, okay, they have essentially some kind of a slush fund, we'll just call it. Now, I'm not going to say that's exactly what it is, but let's just call it that, like a general fund we see in the government or in companies. So now the University of Southern California, let's face it, they've got themselves an $8.12 billion endowment. $8 billion. Well, it turns out that it looks like they've spent, I don't know, $158 million. Maybe they might spend up to $200 million. Well, it seems to me that the University of Southern California, if you look at their overall everything from all their expenditures, at right around $7.4 billion. Now, that doesn't count for revenue. Let's just say they spend about $7.4 billion. Well, it seems to me that's about an $800 million surplus. Now, that's not bad. $800 million between outgoing and incoming. Show me the money! So if that's the case, well, it seems like the University of Southern California could do what? Dip right into the endowment and cover their situation. Hell, they could even cover that Bloom Field if they really wanted to. But they're blaming, I don't know if they're really purposely blaming. They're saying it's a government issue. Well, there's cutbacks in research and this, that, and the other. So guess what? We're going to go ahead and we're going to blame the government, whatever, in my opinion. And let's just say that they blame the government like all these other institutions, which are generally voting for the blue team. Well, what they obviously are missing, being the general public, is the fact that there's a big surplus of money sitting in the endowment. Now, let's just say they burn through the endowment. All right, so let's say there is no budget, or better yet, let's just say there is no surplus. If there's no surplus in the endowment, well, that tells me maybe the University of Southern California, which is a private institution, could do what? They can raise money through alliances and partnerships with local businesses, which they already do. They don't even necessarily have to have alums from there. In the same way I made a statement about the Washington NFL football team over there on how they may do corporate partnerships and whatnot. But the endowments are a big deal. So you say, all right, USC is now in the Big Ten, which I got to tell you, folks, I am very unhappy about that. And I think a lot of people are unhappy about that, too. I mean, USC does not belong in the Big Ten, just like UCLA and Oregon and Washington. It's just ridiculous. Even Rutgers doesn't. Maryland doesn't. Honestly, Nebraska, they don't. Penn State don't either. They don't belong in the Big Ten. But then again, it is what it is. So we say, all right, maybe the University of Southern California could do something directly with the Big Ten. Now, if they won't do anything, if the Big Ten won't say, well, you know what, we don't want to get involved in that, what the University of Southern California could do is they could reach out to their Big Ten partners, right? And some of their Big Ten partners, obviously, you've got one right across town at UCLA, even though it is technically the archenemy. You could probably raise money from their $7.4 billion endowment. Now, let's say you don't want to do that. Let's say they say, no, we don't want to do business with you. No problem. Because they're obviously an in-state rival. And plus, they're also a state university, right? So they are the University of California system. They are taxpayer-driven. But let's stay in the private side. So the private side, what do we have just in Southern California alone? Well, first of all, we have Caltech right there in Pasadena, and it's probably about 20 minutes away from the University of Southern California, right up the 110 freeway. Over in Pasadena, we have Caltech, which has a $3.4 billion endowment. Now, if you don't want to go there, which they have plenty of money, maybe you can head on over to Pomona College or the Pomona Colleges. And there's all kinds of money sitting up there, up in Claremont College, Pomona College, Harvey Mudd, etc. and so forth. Plenty of money there as well. And let's say they don't want to do any business. Well, guess what? What does USC have? They have very good medical research, and they have a good hospital, etc. and so forth. They do a lot for the city of Los Angeles and around the area. So what could they also do? I'll tell you what else they could do. They could work a deal with Stanford University. Now, if you're saying, well, geez, why would they do anything with Stanford? Well, Stanford also is what? A private university. And Stanford, of course, is in a different conference now, so they're not in competition. And Stanford, well, let's face it, if you look at them, you say, well, they got a little bit of money, don't they? Well, geez, last I checked, Stanford has billions of dollars themselves. That's right, billions of dollars themselves. And so Stanford, how about something to the tune of about $40 billion? Tell me Stanford would not want, from the Bay Area all the way down to LA, tell me they wouldn't want some kind of partnership, some kind of something in the greater Los Angeles area for recruiting, because remember, they're now in the ACC. They're not in the Pac-12 anymore with USC, but you have two good hospital systems that could work cohesively with one another. And they could do everything from Stanford Medicine, which is really damn good, to USC Medicine, or they could do something with the Stanford Business School and the Marshall Business School, or engineering or broadcasting. Maybe Stanford could do something because USC leads the world on that front on the West Coast. So you see, there is a real partnership situation there that could happen. And maybe USC could take a long-term loan, and it would be long-term investment from one of these universities, and they would get a nice rate of return, and it would be a friendly rather than a division, or better yet, a conference foe. So Stanford actually is a really good situation. So what I'm trying to say, folks, is that these universities, such as Stanford, they have enormous funds. Look at Yale at 50-odd billion dollars or whatever the heck it is. Harvard with 43 billion or 52 or $53.2 billion, right? Never mind that. Let's just stay within the state of California. Stanford and USC makes a lot of sense to do some business together. And I'm sure at some point they do. I haven't done a ton of research on it. But I'm sure the universities, just like corporations, right, they have corporate partners. So why wouldn't they do it? Think about that, folks. If they can make a nice rate of return from a stable institution that has pretty much the larger private university section locked up for Southern California. I'm not talking about the University of California or the University of San Diego or some of these other smaller schools, Loma Linda University, whatnot. I'm talking about big stuff. USC owns the private recruiting market for Southern California. It is what it is. And so why wouldn't they want to do something? And hell, they could even come from out of state too. And we think about all those other institutions that want a piece of Southern California. Let's go right back to the Big 12. Well, the Big 12, right there in the greater Dallas market, you've got Texas Christian University. Yes, a private university. Let's just stick with the private schools. TCU in Dallas, what do they want? They want a piece of the LA market. Why? Because it's the second biggest market in America. Same thing with Baylor, another private university out of the Big 12. What about Brigham Young, a private university out of the Big 12? You see where I'm going with this, folks? And look, you don't have to go to public money. You can go private money. And these are private institutions. And then you think about, yes, even though they don't like each other on the football field, what about Notre Dame, who has about a $20 billion endowment? And it may be a negative thing when you think between the two schools, but really, folks, there is actually a lot of good things that happen between Notre Dame and USC. So in case you're wondering, there is money sitting out there for USC. It's just who wants to go out and get it? Who wants to cut the deal? Do you have to make a deal with the government? No, you don't have to make a deal with the government. You can go private to private, school to school, because guess what? The private universities, what are they? They're businesses in the first place. And the endowments are their slush funds. And even if USC doesn't want to go and do something like that, they've got, last I checked, about $8.2 billion in their own endowment. So technically, they could borrow, as I see it, in my opinion, they could borrow interest-free from their own endowment in the same way that people borrow from their life insurance policies. And those are the whole life policies. You could borrow from those folks tax-free in case you don't know. In case you're wondering, well, geez, the bank only pays 2% or interest or whatever on my savings. Well, there are government securities that will pay 12 to 18% per year. If you want to learn more about that, info@thesportscircus.com. Folks, we could do this one all day. Remember, I got a business brain, and I'm trying to tell you that the USC is not in trouble. These private universities are not in trouble. It's the liberal media that's spinning the story to say, oh, they're in trouble because their research money is taken away. No, they want you to feel bad for them. Oh, the government did bad for them. No, they didn't. They're being smart. They're watching spending. Listen, folks, there's a lot more to the story. We're out of time. We're going to see you in 23 hours right here on your favorite station. Until then, so long, everyone.
Excellent.
If I was your mother and you had a drug problem, I'd grab you by the ear and make you call and get help. You can be in treatment tomorrow and start to get clean in 7 days. Follow Mom's advice and call the Detox and Treatment Helpline now. Write this number down.
800-814-8628. 800-814-8628. 800-814-8628. That's 800-814-8628.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.